The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.
I think this is overall, it's the greatest leap in agility that we have ever seen. It puts production on super duper caffeinated steroids, kind of, if that makes any sort of sense. Welcome to The Laundry, the podcast connecting AML, compliance, and financial crime to the real world. We're back from summer break with some new buzzwords for you.
Vibe coding.
These are the tools that users write the backend code for websites, apps, and online games with AI. The promise? You no longer need to be an expert coder to create online. Instead, you can build something ready for publication entirely through prompting in minutes. The potential for vibe coding is huge, and VCs are currently throwing billions of dollars in investment behind them.
What stood out for Lovable? Why back it with such a significant sized Series A for European standards?
It allows them to offer to their users the ability to chat or text-based prompt to be able to create fully fledged applications. So that's a front end with a back end and a fully working application. This was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
You talk with users, they say it's magic.
But it wouldn't be The Laundry if we didn't bring that compliance focus. While there are both potential uses for AML specialists, there are also some tasty uses for the financial criminals, fraudsters, money launderers, and sanctions evaders too. I'm your host, Fredrik Riiser, and in this episode, we're asking, what does vibe coding mean for AML? We'll be discussing the potential risks around fraud, money laundering, and sanctions evasion, how the software could be used for building AML systems, and whether we should embrace these vibes or bin them. To dive into this topic, I'm here with my Laundry co-host, dear friend, and Strise colleague, Robin Lycka, Solutions Architect at Strise. Hi, Robin. So we're back for another season of The Laundry. Tell me, what was something that you've learned during the summer break?
Well, what a pleasure it is to be back, Fredrik. Something that I spent a bit of time on this summer is making Gemini kind of my AI tool of choice, exploring how to set up gems, etc. And rather than spending too much time on prompt engineering that I feel like I've kind of ventured pretty deep in, I spent a lot of time context engineering. Meaning that rather than giving the AI custom instructions, you get it to explore more depths of your questions. So looking at like, how can you explore every dimension of this query that I'm giving you? So that's been really interesting. And it's actually, Gemini is pretty high up there now on my list of AI tools of choice.
Because you used to be a proper ChatGPT fan, right?
I know, I kind of didn't want to say that, but yeah, ChatGPT for life. But I really enjoy using Gemini as well. Yeah.
I think they've definitely closed the gap to a certain extent. And I really like the deep research functionality. And pro tip for users out there, use the deep research functionality, get a ton of text, and then put it back into Gemini to synthesize this into the most important bits and parts like you usually use AI. As for me, I spent the summer understanding different guitar tones. So mahogany backend sides versus rosewood backend sides. One provides more of an overtone and more clarity on the sort of the sharper tones, as it were. Meanwhile, the mahogany has more of an even distribution all throughout. And I learned how a baby works, seeing as I got a kid like 3 months ago, which was a lot of learning as well. However, I did get some time to do some vibe coding, so I'm really passionate about today's topic. I think it's going to be an interesting one. Built a few products myself as well, and just over the moon about the opportunities it presents.
I agree. So let's dive into the discussion,
shall we? Let's start by looking at vibe coding and the financial crime risks. Robin, What are some of the legitimate ways that vibe coding is being used? Just to give a flavor of what is possible for those who may not be too familiarized with this technology just yet.
Yeah, I think like in the simplest way, shape, and form, you can give the AI simple instructions, and you can have a website ready to be published, design and everything ready to go. And then you've got maybe more advanced usage, which is like prototyping, testing out ideas, building concepts, and taking like iterating on thoughts and ideas and create prototypes quite rapidly without the need to involve actual developers.
It's bridging a gap, isn't it, in terms of going from ID to actually being able to deploy. I was thinking about this while vibe coding, how many times, like in my sort of career as well, where I've been like, what if? And this really bridges that gap, because now I could go into I for this exercise used Lovable and Data Button and tried a few different type of vibe coding solutions. And I was thinking it's sort of like not just a tool, it's more like the printing press, because it democratizes digital creation. The printing press, it democratized access to knowledge. It wasn't just about printing more books, but it was about sparking revolutions based on now people would actually get insights that weren't available in the past. And I think this is exactly what we're seeing now as well. It's sparking a revolution where everyone can join in on digital creation, on products, on marketing, and it's super exciting.
Absolutely.
So that's some of the use cases currently. But what are investors betting on? Like we talked about in the intro, billions of dollars is getting thrown towards this. So is this going to be the next Facebook, the next Amazon, the next eBay? What are the VCs interested in for this?
Well, as you said, I think it democratizes the ability to test ideas for those kind of platforms. I think we're kind of past the point where you're looking to create the next Facebook. You're looking to create more like niche point solutions now. And I don't think we'll see like mega platforms built by vibe coding, but the ideation process, the prototyping might well started as a vibe coding project. And you can take that, you can bring that ideas to investors. And we're kind of seeing like the tip of the iceberg with these platforms where you have things like tea and these scandals where sensitive information is leaked.
An app designed to let women safely discuss men they date has been hacked. The app T said today about 72,000 images have been leaked online, including pictures, photo IDs of users that were submitted during account verification process.
The T app, which is designed to protect women in the new age dating world, did just the opposite on Friday. According to the T app's privacy policy, the selfies taken are deleted, quote, immediately following the completion of the verification process, end quote.
Hackers are trying to breach this type of data because they can start building profiles that can be sold to the dark web.
Vibe coding completely overlooks, or it doesn't completely overlook, you can engineer that as well, but there's a high risk of it overlooking the security aspect of building these kind of platforms.
Yeah, I saw the Mob AI research where 40%, I think, of the public apps built through this vibe coding setup had leaked some sort of sensitive data already.
Yeah.
So how quickly can this information get into the hands of the bad actors?
Yeah, well, if information is leaked, then it's usually a bad actor trying to get a hold of it. So yeah, it's not a question of how quickly, it's a question more like how quickly can they utilize the information. If there is a leak, what kind of data is leaked, and what can they actually do with that data?
Because I think a shift that a lot of people are talking about is just how quickly this information now can be leaked and the bad actors getting a hold of it. But it's also, in combination with these type of technologies, it's more important than ever before to be sensitive as to where you share this information, because the value that the bad actors can gain from having these type of sensitive information, data points and so forth are just vastly more valuable than before. Now they can use that to create hyper-realistic deepfakes, as an example, digital twins, and similar. And if they have that, plus access to your account to some degree, like what's stopping them from really going in and putting together some sophisticated schemes to fraud banks and similar? But how can fraudsters be using this type of technology?
Well, I kind of have an example from real life, actually, me. This is kind of embarrassing seeing as I work with the things that I do and all. But here's the scenario. I had to replace one of my debit cards because it was expired. At the same time, I get an email from Easy Park. Looks like Easy Park. The email looks completely legit, like design and everything, website, everything looks like the Easy Park website. And it just says like, hey, your Visa card is expired. Can you please add a new one? And, this is in the morning. I'm on my way to work. I'm commuting and I'm thinking like, yeah, I need to sort this stuff. So I'm just going to quickly do this thing now. I'm thinking like, I'm going to do good. I'm going to do something valuable on my commute today. So I enter my Visa card and then there's like this blink of an eye, I see with the bank ID transaction that it looks different. And this is just the advantage that I have because I work with the IDs and I recognize that the user interface was the old one, not the new one. And so there's something wrong here. And then I check the URL and it's like there are a couple of letters off in the URL. And immediately I log into my bank and I see the first transaction and it's through Uber. It's through Uber in Czech Republic or something. So I call up my bank and I ask them to close my card and we're like tongue in cheek. I'm laughing like, yeah, I work with AML. This is kind of embarrassing. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that you can actually do with vibe coding. You can literally give it a website and just say, replicate this website. And I know Marit actually explored this as well in the hackathon. She explored whether or not, how quickly she could set up a fraud website that just mimics the look and feel of a bank. And it looked very convincing. So it's, there are multiple ways as well, crypto platforms that people are they're susceptible to inputting their details and their crypto wallets and all of that. And there's so little you can do once you've been defrauded in crypto. It's a nightmare to try and get your money back, as opposed to a regular bank. Like I called my bank and I got those $15 back pretty quickly, and I was able to close the Visa card access quickly as well.
There's a big discussion these days, right? Who's going to pick up the bill of these sophisticated or elaborate schemes? Is it the bank? Is it the insurance companies? Is it the individual that got duped?
Yeah.
In terms of barrier for entry, I think this type of technology for sophisticated crime, it's basically collapsed to near zero now. Anyone can set up some extremely sophisticated fraud schemes, unfortunately. I was thinking like, imagine just going in saying prompt, create 500 variants of this bank's online page, use IP to root correct language and make sure that you translate the banking website to 30 different languages and so forth, which would be 5 years ago a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Now, I basically put the prompt together, go to sleep, wake up, and have a fraud scheme waiting to deploy when you wake up, which is scary but important to know.
Yeah. It kind of just begs the idea that users just have to be so much extremely more vigilant when using any kind of online service today.
Vigilant as a service. Now, that doesn't make any sense, but some sort of AI to actually be able to always filter the URLs, check for legitimacy and so forth. I'm so surprised that just haven't become like a part of our everyday operations as of now, private and professional.
Yeah, true.
So if we turn our attention to money launderers and sanctions evasions, how could this be used?
Content generation is one thing. We're seeing like company inception, Companies House in the UK being one example where you see like they're even getting bored with the company names. It's just called Company 123, Company 125. Generating legitimate company names and being able to generate these data sets, that's one thing. So one thing that I think is plausible is that these fraudsters or people working within money laundering and sanctions evasion, they could actually start mimicking KYC forms to gather data to use as strawmen or to use as just fraudulent data gathering. And it's a really simple thing for them to do, to mimic a KYC form and get it up and running on any kind of website that seemingly has legitimate interest.
Do you think this is going to be a revolution for the financial criminals, or simply just speeding up the tactics that they're already using?
I think the speeding up aspect is interesting because it's constantly been this cat and mouse game with the regulators and with the enforcers and with the operations as well. You're constantly trying to uncover new modus operandi and figure out how these people are working. And then adding this aspect on top of it, they're just able to move so much more rapidly from concept to concept. Everyone's jobs are going to be more difficult to keep up on this unless you're able to use AI for good.
I completely agree. I think this will both accelerate what is already happening, basically putting a super duper rocket engine on a Ford Fiesta. But it would also be this revolution where there's so many unknown unknowns. I think there's so many typologies that we can't really conceptualize just yet. And it's never been more difficult to predict sort of what will the future of sort of fighting the financial criminals look like in 5 to 10 years. Just imagine like stock manipulation on a large scale, flooding the market with social media profiles saying dump this coin or buy X stock or similar.
Yeah.
Like that will definitely be happening at some scale. The question is obviously, like you mentioned, now will we be able to utilize the technology to do a bit of a reverse or uno reverso? Is that the term? Basically combat it in the same time as it is happening.
But you mentioned stock manipulation. This I just remember this article I read this summer. It was super interesting. It basically had trading bots that were generated by AI and used machine learning. And these trading bots started actually working together as price manipulators, and they would share the profits. So one bot would wait until the other bot was done. It would lower the profit, each individual profit, but it would make both of them profitable. So if you put that into the aspect of price manipulation, just flooding the market with trading bots and using machine learning techniques that kind of suck out the retail money from the market using microtransactions on trading bots. It's pretty wild.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
And something that is imminent.
Yeah, me as a degenerate trader just put 50 on leverage on Bitcoin, double or nothing.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be right back to talk about how we could see vibe coding as a benefit to compliance and AML going forward. Don't go anywhere.
Our overall goal at Strise? Eradicate financial crime. To achieve this, we know we have to build a network of expert partners to put together the ultimate package for compliance and AML teams globally. Let's hear what Plenitude, the leading independent consultancy in financial crime compliance, and one of our partners has to say.
The single biggest issue that are facing our clients in regulated firms at the moment is the increasing cost of compliance. Some of the pain points that clients are trying to address is that requirement to automate both AML and KYC controls. We've been working with Strise initially on a proof of concept exercise to test their solutions in the UK marketplace. But now we've formalised that partnership and we're now in a position to obviously offer to our clients Strise solutions alongside advisory and implementation support as part of deployment of those solutions. One of the things that we really like about Strise and their solutions is it does enable our clients to realise the benefits of AI relatively quickly, and the implementation timelines are relatively short compared to other solutions.
Want to work together? Visit Strise.ai and click Become a Partner to book a meeting.
Welcome back, listener. Remember, we're always available on LinkedIn if you have any big takes on today's episode. Just drop us a message. Now, we've talked about the trouble that vibe coding could cause. So let's start looking at the positives and the solution side of things.
Yeah, let's do that. So you've been talking about this in the office and kind of the editorial meetings as well. This is something that's pretty close at heart for you, Fredrik. What's your take?
Well, I think this is overall, it's the greatest leap in agility that we have ever seen. It puts production on super duper caffeinated steroids, kind of, if that makes any sort of sense. Honestly, for the business side that has so much understanding of the typologies, the methods, the industry knowledge, and basically the risk-based sort of insights, you'd need to really be able to put systems together in a good way. They now have the tools needed to go from idea and the what if to actual product built with their vision at heart. So I think this opens up a whole world of opportunities which is a force for good for AML compliance, basically.
Yeah, and not only like the pre-phase either, they also have the intrinsic knowledge to test the output. So once this is created, the big advantage is that you can actually test the output as well and validate, is this kind of what you were looking for? Do you think this will do the thing that you wanted to do? Which is the big difference from like a coder or a developer that might not have the intrinsic knowledge of the operational side of this.
That's such a good point. I spoke to Terje Fjellvær at DNV regarding sort of how they work together as a team to iteratively and quickly be able to deploy and test different scenario testing and so forth regarding transaction monitoring and their algorithms, which has a huge success rate where they've been able to get to some really, really solid, good results. And he mentioned this, that, well, they basically set their office up in the way that the ones understanding the typology and the risks and the industry basically and so forth were sitting close to the development team that basically got real-time data. They got a real-time quick feedback loop to iterate on the models and so forth. And this basically does the same thing in many ways, where the business side would be able to prompt, test the results, and then adjust, which is a huge step forward compared to most traditional setups where it's a more of a ticket system where you rely on IT and maybe you have a request. It goes into a backlog of projects and processes that the IT and infrastructure team is building and dealing with. And it might take 5 months, 6 months, a year before you're able to test it out. And then you can bring sort of the next iteration of feedback, and even like the typologies might have shifted slightly or even a lot in that time as well. And I think this, again, it's the single biggest leap in agile development that we've ever seen, which is super interesting. And it's going to be able to be a force for good, that's for sure. So what do you think are some of the biggest headaches that this type of technology would be able to help with and smooth over?
Well, I think going from idea to something tangible is first and foremost something visual. I think that's the key element with vibe coding. And then obviously there are other things that venture into more like agentic approach and AI in general, like, generating SAR reports. Like, how can you create a system that helps a developer understand the operational side of creating a SAR report? What's the data input, etc.? Can this process be more efficient and be adapted to the local authority requirements, etc.? But yeah, I think visualizing ideas is the key element with vibe coding.
Because there are limitations, obviously, in this as well. And I think your phrasing of visualizing ideas makes a lot of sense. Building the minimum viable product is a very good task of utilizing this vibe coding setup. However, obviously, not everyone can start tapping into sort of all libraries and sharing the sensitive information due to risks already mentioned here, but there's other risks as well associated with just everybody being able to plug and play customer data into sort of their own workflow process support system, as an example. What I envision, though, is that this will transform how organizations are set up fundamentally, where you usually did have an IT team, which was quite separate, to now having more of a hybrid type of role that needs to have a bit more understanding of both ends. And predominantly, it will even tend to be coming from the business or sort of the industry expert side rather than the other way around. And also another sort of limitation in all of this is that AI hallucinates, right? So it's almost like an over-caffeinated intern that's super confident. We can call it the super confident intern problem, where you basically have a setup where the technology can do 80% of the work in a fraction of the time. However, the super duper safe encrypted library it pulls the records from, that doesn't really exist. That's something it confidently has made up. So the end-to-end solution is not secure, nor does it potentially work. But if you have insights in coding and expertise in coding, you could be the manager of that. You can be the senior coming in and review the code. So it's going to be, I think, less coding, more reading and approving and sort of iterating via using prompts in a very close collaboration between the business side and the tech side, if we want to simplify sort of how an organization is traditionally set up. It would also set up new fundamental requirements as to sort of the data that goes into these type of systems as well. Because if you take the stance that this will create solutions quicker and on a larger scale, that means the problem of putting shit in will mean you have even more shit out on
exponentially shit out.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is a huge problem as well. So I think the foundational data piece in all of this is going to be a huge opportunity moving forward, where yes, the business side can start plugging into databases and so forth, or they can start creating their workflow systems. However, they can't really start tying together all the APIs and sort of the work that traditionally the infrastructure IT process team have been working with. But I think if you have fundamentally a good data set to plug into these type of solutions, then you're really starting to talk about building the future of AML compliance and automation. So, but where does this fit in when it comes to helping with the sanctions evasion?
Well, I think rapid prototyping is one. I think there's this merger that I'm expecting to see where it's kind of like vibe coding meets machine learning. So if you can start testing machine learning models on large data sets and having these confined, obviously, with the secure approach, etc. But for internal innovation, testing out machine learning techniques and looking at how you could expose modus operandi in sanctions evasion, and perhaps even predictive models within, if you use vibe coding as a layer on top of your data, and you look at behavior pattern changes, like a company that used to do this now does that and has ties to a region that's bordering to an area or a geographical area that has a high degree of sanctions. I'm not sure if it's going to help a lot with uncovering sanctions evasion, but I think vibe coding meets machine learning is something that would be really interesting, because machine learning and testing out models is something that's been very much limited to the people that know how the machine learning model works. You kind of have to be an engineer to test those models.
You think the risk-averse banks will start utilizing this technology soon?
I think they should. I think that there's this like kind of it's not even old. It's just like if you go a few years back, you would see these incumbents and large enterprises. They would be so proud with their internal innovation team that would kind of live in a separate room, and they'd have a ping pong table and shuffleboard and everything, kind of like a startup within the company. I think they really need to more like assimilate the internal innovators and embrace them and make them a lot more part of the team than just trying to create like a separate internal innovation startup within the company. And I think like the approach needs to be that you need to embrace and understand this technology and approach rather than just being proud that, yeah, look at us, what we're doing internal with our cool team over here.
It makes total sense. Like the innovation needs to happen. It needs to be structurally set up so that you actually utilize this type of technology and embrace it, even though you are risk averse by nature, and nobody probably would like to identify themselves as risk averse, to be fair. But I think most financial institutions, most banks, they understand that the revolution is happening at the moment. And in terms of adoption, I think the risk of being obsolete quickly, very quickly even, will outweigh the risk of adoption on this one. And what I also think is really good about this type of technology is that you can treat it as an extremely pragmatic exercise as well. You can go from, all right, Friday, 12 o'clock, let's all meet. Let's try to put something together. Doesn't need to be sensitive data, doesn't need to be even tied to the business that we're operating, but let's just see how it works. And then I think most people that haven't fully sort of dabbled around with these type of technologies will have a real eye-opener and see that, well, if we don't start using this type of technology, we will be competing with the companies that do. And those companies will be more effective in terms of stopping financial crime, and they will be more efficient in terms of growing their revenue. I'll stake my name on that.
Yeah, and we actually did that. We had our vibe coding workshop, and that was it was super easy to set up and kick off. And big shout out to Lovable for allowing us to have some, maybe just a tiny little bit of extra testing credits for that workshop. It was a lot of fun. Lovable is such a cool platform to use. People should start just doing stuff rather than talking about it, because it was such a simple exercise to set up for us.
100%. Before we end this episode, I'm going to give you an amazing power. So you can either embrace vibe coding and let it happen with all the potential challenges and potential financial crime risks it poses, or you can pull the plug and bin it. So we live in a world where it never happened. So remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Robin, will you embrace or bin vibe coding?
I will embrace it.
Very good. All right, nice. And as for me, I also choose embracing it. It's exciting times that we live in. If you ask me the same question regarding AI, since I have quite a dystopian type of view on AI as a whole, as long term, even though I think short term it will do a lot of good for a lot of people and make people's lives amazing in the short term. I think vibe coding is one technology that, since AI already exists and is commercialized and democratized now, I really do embrace it. I do think it's a force for good. I think it's the biggest leap in agility we have ever seen, and it even evens the playing field, I think, between the people trying to do good and the financial bad actors out there as well. So we won't be needing this. And that brings this spin of the laundry to an end. Robin, thank you so much for joining me again. And where can people find and connect with you?
Well, obviously on LinkedIn /Robin Lycka. Shoot me an email, robin@strise.ai.
Money makes the world go round.
And thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed the podcast, go back and check out over 9 seasons and more than 130 episodes and follow the laundry on your podcast platform of choice. Please share the podcast on your social media channels, tell a colleague about it, or give us a 5-star rating. Let us know if you've done any of these things and we'll show you some love. Got something to talk about on the podcast? Comment on the Strise LinkedIn, my LinkedIn, or email laundry@strise.ai. Your host for this episode was me, Fredrik. Our producer was Matthew Neil Patrick Dunmiles. Our editor was Dominic. Our engineer was Nicholas. See you next time. Mahogany sides and back.
The Laundry is proudly produced by Strise, your AML automation software for faster onboarding, smarter monitoring, and growth without overhead.